Hello, welcome to the first tier list that I'm posting on this channel. I'm hopefully going to post one about every 2 weeks because I really enjoy watching them on YouTube. And I thought, you know what, I'm going to give it my own go. So this week is going to be about podcasts. I'm going to rank all types of YouTube and just mainstream podcasts in a variety of. You'll see in a minute. The reason I'm doing this little short intro is because I'm not clever enough to be able to put a face cam on at the same time as a screen recording. Hope I'll be able to do it in the future, but right now it's just going to be the screen recording with me talking over the top a bit like a podcast. But please enjoy and please give me a message when I put them all horrendously in the wrong place. Thank you. Hello and welcome to this tier list podcast. I'm sure you just saw that little intro. But yes, this week's tier list is going to be podcasts. And as you can see, there is 5 different tiers that I'll be sorting them into. I'll start from the top down. So GOAT, won't miss an episode. This means that every week it's uploaded. I'll probably listen to the full thing. And it'll be the first one I listen to when I pick it up. Second one is listen all the way through a Morse podcasts. Pretty self-explanatory. Probably won't catch everyone, but if I do, I'm more likely to listen all the way through. And it's just a favourite of mine. The third one down, catch the clips on YouTube. Again, self-explanatory. Probably not good enough that I'd sit and listen to the whole episode. That could also double as I'd listen to half the episode, or like I say, I'd go on YouTube and watch a few of the clips, but probably wouldn't listen all the way through. The fourth one down, subscribed but not yet played, is one that I have lots of podcasts in, where I've subscribed to them or followed them on Apple Podcasts or YouTube. And like I said, I just haven't got around to viewing them. Maybe I'm not that interested, but I think they have a cool concept, that sort of thing. Then obviously, not doing my ears like that. It's a shite podcast. I've tried it. It's shit. I don't like the people. Probably just something like that. Or I just don't think it's well done. Maybe I shouldn't be too harsh, but yeah. That's the tiers. So I'm gonna jump in. If you think I'm wrong, please comment or message me. And if not, please enjoy this. So the first one is... Oh, can I not drag that? Oh, there we go. The Blind Boy Podcast. This is a podcast by The Blind Boy. He's an Irish musician, content creator now. He does a lot of Twitch streams. I've actually been watching him a lot on Twitch. I think he's really good. And his podcasts, sometimes political, quite historical, mostly about like Irish history and politics. And I found him through Russell Brand. He did like a live podcast with Russell Brand once, and I started listening to his podcasts. And at the same time, a few of my friends from Ireland actually already knew about him and knew his music and knew his podcasts. But he's really good. Oh, I just dropped him, didn't we? Put him there. I'm going to put him at listen all the way through a Morse podcast because I don't catch every one he does. Not every single one that catches my eye. But it's definitely really good podcast. I've never seen anything so coherent about such like difficult subjects sort of thing. But yeah, so I'm going to put him there because if I do catch an episode, I'll definitely listen all the way through. And also extra points because I've been watching him on Twitch and he's so fucking good. It's literally like 6-hour-long podcasts on Twitch because he's just so clever. The next one is that Peter Crouch podcast. This is one that was recommended to my friend Joel. I think we actually listened to an episode... Was it his? We listened to an episode on the way when we went to Ireland one year. We listened to an episode of this, and it was actually really funny. And then I actually went back and caught up with a few of the episodes. I think I got like halfway through the first season, and for someone who's not that into football, it's actually like really good, and it's good for people that aren't that into football because it's sort of like every week they take a segment. So one week it would be like changing rooms, or one week it would be like England team, or one week it could be a different thing every week, and then they'll answer and talk about stories about that. And it's really interesting, like to like for people that don't really care about football, but the stories behind the scenes are actually really interesting. So like I say, he did one week about like being on the England team and going out. He did one week about what it's like being in the changing rooms. They're the only two I've said because they're the only two I can think off the top of my head. Because like I said, I didn't get through the whole of the first season, but my friend Joel did, and apparently he did like a live Peter Crouch festival at the end of like the first season. He had like loads of in-jokes and people came, and like it was a whole thing, and it sounds really cool. But I'm going to put it in catch the clips on YouTube because I listen to so many podcasts, that's one that normally gets sent to the bottom. But it is actually really good, and I'd recommend to anyone who likes football, or even is a bit like and ahhing about football. Some really cool stories in there. Next one, David Tennant does a podcast with. This started, I believe, was it in lockdown or was it way before lockdown? It's honestly been so long, I can't remember. But obviously at the same time where every single celebrity was making podcasts, David Tennant started one. And in my recent podcast on Prandycast, which is a GOAT, definitely a GOAT podcast, I talked about David Tennant's podcast because he's done them with like Michael Sheen, Olivia Colman, Ian McKellen, Jim Parsons from like The Big Bang Theory. And he does like really in-depth conversations with them. That it's like they're just two mates at a pub, and he asks them questions that you'd want to ask him about stories that like you've probably thought about. And it's just a really chill conversation. Normally the people aren't really like trying to shell a new movie or a book at you. They're not really trying to promote anything. And they're actually really, really interested. And if you're into like maybe celebrities and more pop culture, that sort of thing, I think this one's definitely a good go. And it's really coherent. I love his guests, and he's a really, really good host. So I'm gonna go listen all the way through on Morse podcasts because there's a few people I can't even name you because I can't remember them that I don't really care for sort of things. I wouldn't really listen to their episodes because I wouldn't really care, to be honest. Next is the Eboyz podcast, and more people probably don't know who the Eboyz are. They are a YouTube group made up of Will and E, Memulus, James Marriott, and I'm Alex. They've just started their I was going to say they've just started their podcast. It came out in April, which is sorry. They started the Eboyz channel in April, and they started their podcast literally like 3 weeks ago. They're only 3 episodes in. And maybe this is where my tiering is a bit off because I really enjoy the podcast and I've seen every episode and listened all the way through. But I wouldn't really say that it's the best. It does feel a little bit scripted. They have obviously a list of things to talk about on their podcast. And obviously in the first one, I think they were trying to get picked up maybe by like a production company that like promotes podcasts. So it felt a bit stale, a bit stagnated. See, so this is where I'm a bit. It doesn't deserve to be a go of an episode, but I do listen all the way, I do listen all the way through on most episodes. On every episode so far, there's only been 3. But it's not good enough to be go. I'd want to put it in Catch the Clips on YouTube, but I do listen to full episodes, so it's going to have to go there. But at the end, I might review that and move it down. This, again, to be fair, this might not work because I listen to all of these podcasts all the way through almost. So this is the Hatchat podcast, again, another YouTube group, Hat Films. And they had Hatchat from years and years ago, and then at the beginning of this year, they started up Hatchat again. At the beginning, it was weekly. But that started to become a bit too much. I didn't have enough to talk about, and I would start not listening to them. So then they started doing it every fortnight, and that was such a good idea to do, because now they always have stuff to talk about. It's always really, really interesting. It's always really funny. It's more of a comedy podcast. It is well funny. Not the funniest one on here, but it's really, really funny. And I'm gonna put it on listen all the way through. I'll catch the clips. I do listen all the way through on most. It's an accurate description. I listen all the way. I'm too excited to be talking. I listen all the way through on most episodes, but there's lots of them where I get halfway through and then I'll just never come back. Like an Apple podcast and stuff. It's like, are you finished watching? And I'm like, yeah. This is Happy Hour podcast again by another YouTuber. And this is obviously Jackmate's podcast. He's gone through a variety of co-hosts, but at the minute it's Stevie. And this, honestly, I wouldn't really call that much of a YouTube podcast because he has really, really interesting guests. He has recently had, I can't remember his name, but it's the guy that did Hunted on Channel 4, where like 12 pairs of people go running across the UK. And then that guy, Peter Blakely, he's the guy that has to try and catch them. He was on there. He has had obviously lots of other YouTubers on there, like all the Sidemen and people like that. Recently, Stephen tries, and it's really, really funny. And honestly, although there are some filler episodes, he does ones like Urban Legend episodes, or he does like what we did before YouTube. It's actually a really, really good podcast. And I honestly can't fault it. I don't know whether to put it in GOAT or not, because you know what, I am. Fuck it. Because it is actually, as much as it's a YouTube podcast, he's actually a really, really good host. All his guests are always interesting. And more often than not, I will actually sit and always watch all the way through. So, but I have missed lots of episodes. Technically, he should be on Catch. You know what? Nah, I'm demoting him because I don't like his Urban Legend ones. Woo! No. I think we're going to get this all the way through on most episodes and lots of these, But, no, we're not. So this is the Joe Rogan Experience. I do not like Joe Rogan as a person, and lots of the things that he said have like come out on Twitter and stuff. Obviously, I don't really have any attachment to him. I don't really watch UFC, and like I watch the boxing, but I don't think it's got anything to do with that. I don't like what stuff came out on Twitter. And when I've watched podcasts with him before, the only ones I watched, obviously, like maybe ones with Louis Through or one with like Steve or I should have put Steve O's podcast on here. But like, and I'm putting him, not doing my ears like that. Don't listen to him. Don't like him. I don't think he's a very good host. Whenever I watch it, the people normally dictate the conversations. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I haven't seen enough, but I've never really seen him dictate the conversations or ask any overly interesting questions. Whereas, like, even Jack, mate, I think is a fantastic host, and David Tennant, and they ask really like not intrusive. They ask really well worded, but like deep questions. And maybe he does, but I've never seen it like that. And you know what? Fuck him. I don't like him. He sounds like an asshole. Sorry to anyone who likes Joe Rogan. Next, another celebrity that started a podcast during lockdown is Grounded with Louis Theroux. I'm just going to go straight ahead and put him there. Listen all the way through on most episodes. And that is mainly because it's the same as David Tennant. He has different people on every single time. And he, as you can probably tell, Louis Theroux is a fantastic podcast host. He is really good at asking questions. He's really confident with his guests. He's how he is in like his documentaries and things like that. But there are a few episodes of people I didn't really care about that I didn't listen to. He did surprise me with a few, like Helena Bonham Carter. He did an episode with her and it was really, really good. Pardon me. And like I didn't expect that, but then he did one with KSI, and he did the traditional mainstream media thing where he was like, "How much money do you make?" Like, oh, no, no. Like those sort of questions. And I did actually lose a little bit of respect when he was doing that. I was like, oh. Because every time we watch a YouTube or any mainstream sort of interview, it's always, "How much money do you make?" And you say, "Where'd you make it?" Nah. That I did, like, obviously, I still love Louis III, still a fucking goat. But that, I was like, oh no. So this one is the definition of a YouTube podcast: Views with David Dobrik and Jason Nash. See, this is one that I would sometimes put in not doing my ears like that, because I listened to it in 2017 when it started, or 2018, and I listened to every single episode because I was a little fanboy. And then Jason started saying to me some problematic things, not to me, but like in my opinion, he sort of said some problematic things, and I wasn't too happy with him, so I've stopped listening for literally about 2 years. And then I started listening again throughout lockdown, and this is a really way to describe it because it basically describes every single podcast ever, but it is literally them just having conversations and someone edits them together. It's not one cohesive podcast, it's just them. They sit in a room for 2 hours with microphones and they just talk for 2 hours, and then someone edits it into a podcast. But there's no, like, I wouldn't really say there's much flaw. It's just stories of them. It's just like behind the scenes of the vlog. So I'd say catch the clips on YouTube. Every now and again, it does clickbait me, and I am like, maybe I should watch that. But yeah, most of the time, I'd even put subscribe but not played, but I've played it sometimes. But yeah, he is between here and there, so I'll give him the benefit of the doubt. Put him here. So this is the issue: fake doctors, real friends. This is a shame because this is Zach Braff and Donald, not Gleason. It's Donald Faison. And obviously, every episode of this, they watch an episode of Scrubs and they do a behind the scenes. They have a guest on who probably someone who was in that episode, and they also talk to a fan and answer their question. And it's really, really interesting to hear the behind the scenes of Scrubs, because at the time when this came out again in lockdown, I was really, really excited, and I watched like the first 10 episodes, and I was like, oh, it's so good, like you get all the behind the scenes. And then I finished Scrubs because I was like binging it. I was like, no, like I'll keep watching. I think I was only like 7 episodes in at that point, so I was like, I'll keep watching. But then because they had loads of time in lockdown, they were uploading twice, even like 3 times a week. I think maybe I'm exaggerating, but it might be like twice a week. And even once a week, I sometimes struggle to keep up with podcasts. And they started to get. It was just so like there were so many. I'm now probably 2 seasons behind, and they started in lockdown, and they're probably now in season 3 when I stopped listening on season 1. Like, so it is a real shame. But I'm gonna put subscribed but not played, because I am subscribed to it. I think I'm about 10 episodes in. They're probably on like episode 50 now or something. But it is a shame because it is actually really, really interesting. At one point, when all I had to do was go for a walk an hour a day at the height of lockdown, that was the hour I'd listen to them. To be fair, so. Definitely go and check it out, but maybe I fucked myself by binging Scrubs, but who knows. Next is Biscuits by yet another group of YouTubers, which is Rhett and Link. And I again found this during lockdown. That's probably a bit of a theme occurring. And it's just them really telling their stories and their opinions on things. They did a really good one over lockdown, which was must have been before lockdown actually. They'd been on holiday, wrecked to Ireland, and linked to Japan, and they did like a few episodes on like each of them about their like stories and experiences. And they did a really big deep dive into their past as recently as well. Oh, I didn't find these at lockdown. I actually found these around Christmas because I remember because I was in my uni house, and they did like a deep dive of when they used to be like evangelical Christians and things like that, and it was really really interesting. But I feel like there's a lot of filler episodes. It's sort of the YouTube thing where they have to produce an episode every week, and sometimes like the content's just not there. So I am gonna put them in, catch the clips on YouTube, because I actually like they are really really interesting people, and I used to love Good Mythical Morning, but I just don't have time to listen to their podcast every week. But I would catch the clips if it did clickbait me. To be fair, this one. Shagged, married, annoyed with Chris and Rosie Ramsey. This was just before lockdown, when I was handing in my like essays. Me and my friend, we went to the library, and she put this on for me. Not like for me. We were just doing our essays, and she put Shagged, Married, Annoyed on an episode. She was like, "Oh, this is really funny. I think you'd like this." And ever since then, it's go. I've never missed an episode. I've gone back and listened to all the episodes. They're so fucking funny. This is the funniest podcast I've ever listened to, and probably ever will listen to. It's a podcast I couldn't like listen to on the bus because I'd laugh out loud. I struggle to walk to places listening to this one because like I'm always constantly laughing, and people think you look like an absolute nutter, like smiling your head off when you're listening to it. It's so bad, but 10 out of 10 recommended to anyone. It's so funny. They have segments like What's Your Beef? And they have questions from the public. They have Rosie's Mysteries. It's so, so good. Honestly, I'd recommend it to anyone. So this is Suggestible. And this is run by someone called Mr. Sunday Movies and his wife. And Mr. Sunday Movies has another podcast that's on the list called The Weekly Planet, that people know him from, and he owns the Planet Broadcasting Network. And they're an Australian couple, and like I said, they own like a podcast network. And about maybe a year and a half, 2 years ago, they started doing this Suggestible pod, and it comes out every week. It's the married couple. Well, they had a little hiatus because they had a baby, which is fair enough. And every week they take it in turn to suggest different movies, books, music, comic books, everything like that, because they spend most of their time doing that, because obviously he has like a pop culture podcast, and she spends a lot of time at home because she's like helping out with the behind the scenes of all the podcasts and stuff. So she reads a lot of books, watches a lot of films, even like cookbooks and things like that. And it's such a good podcast. It's so funny. I'm going to put it in and listen to all the way through on most episodes. Sometimes I do miss an episode, but whenever I catch one, I always listen all the way through. It's so, like, they are really, really genuinely funny married couple. And their suggestions, I've watched like, even a few of these podcasts are probably from their suggestions, to be fair. Like, Russell Brand and stuff. And he's the way I found Blind Boy podcast. So that just tells you everything. But it's such a good podcast. It's so funny. But like I said, every now and again I do miss an episode, so it's not goated. The True Geordie Podcast. Obviously, most people know True Geordie. He's from Newcastle. He now lives in London. And him and his co-host Lawrence run about 150 podcasts now. And I found him probably around the time I found The Sidemen. And I started listening to some of his podcasts. He did one with like... what's he called? Robbie Williams. He did one with Robbie Williams. He's done a few. He did one with Completed It Mate, which is Jay from The In-Betweeners, and I was quite big into that at the time when I first found it. Obviously, he's done them with YouTubers. He's done them with proper celebrities. Like, he did one with fucking Tyson Fury, didn't he? He's done them with like loads and loads of people. So cool. So like really, really interesting podcasts. I'm actually going to put him in GOAT because I've gone back and listened to every single one of his podcasts, and they're really interesting. He did one with David Icke, which is about conspiracies, and that got me really, really into conspiracies. And yeah, again, I think he's like one of the most honest and open YouTubers, yet being the most truthful. He's a really, really cool guy. I love Lawrence. Him and Lawrence are fucking hilarious together. And I've never really been disappointed by an episode. They're always really, really interesting and eat up like 2 hours of my life, or even like longer. Like they did one with Robbie Williams, and it was like 4 hours long or some shit. It was so cool. I remember it was before Christmas, and I put it on the living room, and I was like doing something. I think I was baking bread in the kitchen, and like for the whole time I was just listening to True Geordie. It was so good. Like, go and check him out on YouTube and get his merch. He has cool t-shirts that I really want. Next is Under the Skin by Russell Brand. Again, I think I found this through Suggestible, and that's how I found the Blind Boy podcast. Some people don't really like Russell Brand, but he has gone through a massive spiritual awakening. And I'm going to put him on Catch the Clips on YouTube because he's a bit like the Blind Boy podcast. He does really, really interesting podcasts, has fantastic guests. Even though like Blind Boy podcast doesn't really have that many guests, but he does. And they're all very about spirituality, religion, politics, like the ideas of right and not like right and wrong, like the ideas behind everything. It's like really, really interesting to sink your head into. He did one with like Brian Cox, where obviously Russell Brand's very spiritual now, and Brian Cox is like scientist, things like that. Really interesting episodes. But about a year ago, he was bought by a podcast like streaming service. I can't even remember what it's called, and it's like £8 a month to subscribe to this service. I'm sure there's there's loads and loads of podcasts on there, but that means like I don't really get to listen to them anymore. He posts clips. Oh, it's like a big episode. He'll post them out for free on Apple Podcasts if he has like a massive guest to try and get people in. But I'm gonna have to put them and Catch the Clips on YouTube because that's all he posts now. And like Brené Brown did one. Brené Brown, I think that's still available to watch for everyone. Definitely go and give that one a watch. It's so interesting, and like if you're interested in spirituality or meditation or anything like that, I'll definitely give it a watch. Waffling, I'm going to put this straight in subscribe but not played. This is Joe Weller's podcast, another YouTuber, and he does it with like Theo Baker. I saw Joe Weller on whose podcast was it? I think it was Jackmate. Jackmate did a podcast with him, and he was really interesting. He was asking Jackmate like questions back and stuff, and then I watched a few clips online of his, and it seemed really, really interesting. The only thing is, I don't really like his voice, which is a strange thing. So sometimes I'd struggle to like listen to his podcast if I didn't like his voice. But I have subscribed to it, but literally subscribed but not played. That was made for Waffling, and I'm actually quite excited to get into it. Second to last, we have The Weekly Planet, which is similar to Suggestible Pop. It's Mr. Sunday Movies, but with his friend Nick Mason, and they talk comic books, movies, like movie news, basically. It's a comic book movie podcast, and they do it every single week. It's about the news that week in anything to do with movies, books, music, like, not really music, books, films, TV shows. It's all that sort of news. And they're like, they have the ability, you'd think they'd done a course in comedy or in improv, like the way they bounce off each other. I'm gonna put them in GOAT, because it's so fucking good. Like the improv they have and make jokes, have ongoing jokes, and every single episode you're in stitches. Maybe it's a nerd thing. Like you have to, and they both have really, really deep knowledge of like DC and Marvel, and like most directors and movies. Yeah, it's a really, really good podcast, especially if you're in that sort of thing. It started, I think, about 2016. It was just before Batman v Superman came out, and that's why they made their first podcast, because they wanted to sort of debate like whether Batman v Superman would be a good film. And from there, it's just gone on, and it's the first podcast I listen to every time a new movie comes out because I want to hear their thoughts on it. That's how good it is. Like, oh, fantastic. And finally, sorry, this has probably gone on a bit long, but this is the What's Good podcast hosted by Minnie Minter and Randolph. Again, it comes out every week on YouTube, and they do basically YouTube news every week. But I watch a lot of Sidemen content, not even on YouTube, but also on Twitch, things like that. And every single week, they talk about what's been going on that week in the Sidemen, in the greater news, like not even like YouTube news, but then greater news, and then any funny stories they have. Really, really interesting. This is again the definition of I listen all the way through on most podcasts. At this point, it probably is. I wouldn't miss an episode. I do listen to it every week, but they're just not that sort of level of GOAT to be able to put them up there, unfortunately. So I have a love-hate relationship with Randolph, whether I like him or not. But Minnie Minter, a fab host. I think he's really, really good. But yeah, that was my tier list for podcasts. Should I ever switch round? I was going to say put them in order. You know what? I'm going to put like that there. See, none of these are bad. I'm going to put the Eboyz last solely because I think they have a lot of work to do to become like the free-flowing podcast that most of these are. I'm actually going to put David Tennant, even though I've like been raving about David Tennant, I might actually put him down to about there you go. Actually, you know what? I do have to put him there. That is my final tier list for all these podcasts. If there's any that I didn't mention that you listen to, please comment down below or give me a message. Because as you can see, I really, really love podcasts. I've got my own Prandycast on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. Please go and give it a listen. But like I said, if I didn't mention the one you listen to, please give me a message because I'm always looking for new podcasts to listen to. I'm always going on longer and longer walks and running out of things to listen to. So hopefully I can do one of these in the future again where I'll have even more podcasts to review. But go and listen to Shag My Annoyed. It's so fucking funny. And I'll see you in the next tier list. Thank you.